hit that like button. Go ahead, do it now before I reach out into that screen and twist your hand like Aunt Esther. Hit the like button. Thank you.
Destroy.
But it's mellow madness, because you will ask yourself the question, what were they thinking about, the angry man, when they did what they did? And then you got to ask the men, what are they thinking about, the angry man, when they allow the behaviors of some of these modern women?
They have written entire articles and they're not getting paid for it. The videos are not getting enough views. There is a woman that made a video or two about me, has like 60,000 subscribers, and none of her videos have more than 700 views. Can anybody tell me what that's about? I would like to know. Can you buy YouTube subscribers just like you can buy Instagram followers? But let's so you can buy YouTube subscribers. Yeah, she had to have bought her subscribers because even her Instagram was like that. And I realized that and I was like, yeah, oh no, I'd never buy Instagram followers or subscribers. I need to stay completely authentic. I went to her IG and I'm like, you know, she's talking bad about me, but even her IG photos don't match the amount of followers. It's like thousands, and she got a K at the end of her followers, but the pictures have like, you know, double-digit likes, tens of likes. But we're going to talk about this sympdemic. We're waiting on our guest, the kosher clinician. I had just sent him the link. We're waiting on him to log on, and then we will start. But yeah, that was a good live stream we just had. I think that was pretty informative, especially the last 2 hours about it. Seemed like, at least the last hour, at least I say, seemed like if you are interested in software engineering, you need to listen to that last part. Also, you guys, like I said in my video the other day, I am on the way out. If you guys want to support, I have a GoFundMe, so that way I can, the more money I have, because believe it or not, I still have not got my first YouTube check. All those super chats you guys are giving me, I have still not received those yet. So this money that I'm using is coming, you know, this is me. But the longer, you know, the more money I have, the longer I can stay, the more content I can give, and I am held accountable with my reputation and my funding for my support through YouTube. There is the link down there if you guys want to go support. It is right there, and I will pin it to the top. Let me actually open up so I can pin it to the top. Yeah, and YouTube takes 30%. I don't know how much GoFundMe takes, but it really doesn't matter as long as, you know, all support is welcome. But don't think I ever came up with that idea. I actually had a subscriber come up with that idea for a GoFundMe. I would never ask you guys to fund, you know, directly. But hey, he advised it, so I thought if a subscriber thought it was okay, I didn't think it'd be too hard to ask. But if you really think this is God's work and this is really helping you, please leave me a donation down there. It is pinned to the top, and we are still waiting on our guest. I really need some music to play. Really need some music to play. But yeah, it's kind of scary taking the risk of, you know, pretty much packing up and just, you know, about to jump around and survive off of YouTube or wherever you want to say it, quit my job. Not worried about failing. It's just the change is kind of got me kind of anxious to be there. But we have our guest in the building here right now. Let's go ahead and bring him in. This is the kosher clinician. How you doing today, sir?
What's going on, brother? How you doing, sir? How you making it?
Well.
No doubt, no doubt.
So let's get a little overview about you. Where are you from?
Well, I'm from the greatest state in the Union, the Tar Heel State, man. It don't get no better than the Tar Heel State, man. The home of Michael Jordan and the real barbecue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, real barbecue. Yeah.
So what is your background? Like, what is your line of work? I know your line of work, but what is the audience? What can you tell the audience?
So my background is very diverse, Austin. My background encompasses several things. I was in law enforcement initially. I got my first degree in law enforcement. I worked as 2 years as a mental health correction officer. From there, I got I did 7 years with the Department of Juvenile Justice, working with youth, working with adjudicated youth, many times gang members, sex offenders. Did that for 7 years. Went back and got my bachelor's in general and social work. Went back, got my license in special ed, taught school for 5 years. And then I got my master's from UNC Chapel Hill, where I'm a licensed therapist now. So, my background is very diverse, very eclectic. I've done it all for years.
Okay, so we're going to talk about this SIMPdemic today that we got going on in the States.
Yes, sir.
I think it's irreversible. These dudes can be saved. And then we're going to combine that with how your line of work ties directly with the passport bros as well, this whole movement. So tell us about how you are or were a passport bro.
Well, how can I say it? I do embrace the passport movement. I was in the movement with Al Grease recently, Fush 3.
Oh, you breaking up?
And can you hear me?
Yeah, you better now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I embrace it and also advocated for it, Austin, because it's consistent with the psychoanalytic theory that was more or less posited by Dr. William Glasser. Dr. William Glasser talked about a condition called reality therapy. And reality therapy says that when people don't get their needs met, then they go and do things outside of their environment to get those said needs met. The whole basis or the whole premise for reality therapy is this: power, fun, freedom, belonging, and survival. Those are the three main elements. And that treatment model is normally seen in young people, but you can also apply it to adults, because human beings, many times when they don't get their needs met, they act out. So I do believe that men should get passports if they're not getting the best outcomes, because men dictate the dating market. Men determine who they want to marry. It's not more or less determined or predicated by women. But see, here's the problem, Austin. We live in a world now where people like to dictate to men what to do instead of men living their lives on their own terms, free of shame, free of guilt, and free of ridicule. And this movement is good because what it does, it more or less help galvanize other men to help one another get decisions, make decisions, also get the best outcomes that are suitable for them long term. I think it's also good because many times many therapists are not talking about male rights and men getting their needs met. So I think it's excellent that men now are having the opportunity to live their lives on their own, free of distress, free of shame, and then say, I'm gonna do what's best for me, to say the least.
So what countries did you go to whenever you traveled?
Yeah, I was in the country of Brazil, man. I was in Brazil. I was in Rio, Copacabana. I was down there with Al Grease, and the first time I went back again back in November, and it was a life-changing experience. I mean, the first trip was a little frustrating because I lost my phone. I believe the second or third day I was there. But it was good seeing the differences in that culture where men are greeted, they're honored, and they're respected. And I understand and know that part of that is because we are Americans. That's part of it. But this being black man in Brazil, there was a lot of respect, man. I saw it was a lot of respect, and it was good. It was the first time I had traveled internationally ever in my life, and minus me losing my phone the first time. Overall, it was a good experience.
Gail right here in the comments says that there's a glare over your glasses. Do you have a green screen setting on, or is it just the lighting? There is a glare over your glasses.
Well, I can just take them up.
Okay.
I'll just take them up. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
So, why do you think in countries like Brazil, masculinity is more accepted there and the women behave more feminine?
Well, it's a concept called machismo or machista. It's because they're kosher patriarchies. They're bona fide patriarchies, and they don't have the liberal laws that we have here in America. America is a bastion of liberalism. It's a bastion of what I call many times an oligarchy, which is a rule of few, where the women are more or less impose or more or less influence those few men that are leading to create laws and also policies that are more or less detrimental to the well-being of boys and men. And so Brazil is a more kosher patriarchy, meaning I'm not going to say kosher, it's just a patriarchy, because over there you don't disrespect men. Literally, you can lose your life in those countries compared to here in America. So it's machismo or machista, which basically means, the men are macho. They say what they mean what they say. And to give you an example, I had a situation when I was at a restaurant. There was a woman saying something out of line. The man yelled at her, probably cursed her out in Portuguese, and she started crying, and that was the end of it. And so they don't tolerate what men tolerate here in America in a nutshell. That's it. In a nutshell, it's the culture, and it's predicated on masculinity. That's the succinct difference there compared here to America.
Okay, so what would you define a simp as? What is a simp to you?
Right. So there's an urban term for a simp, Austin. That's a great question. There's an urban term for the word simp. But as a clinical therapist, I created two terms as it relates to being a simp. A simp, in a general sense, is any person that more or less puts his value system on hold, or more or less live his life to please a woman instead of living his life based on masculine principles. So I created two concepts from the urban term simp. The first one is the unconscious simp. The second one is the conscious simp. So if you ever hear anybody on YouTube using that terminology, conscious or unconscious simp, I created that idea because the unconscious simp also stands for supplementing irrational male patterns. I'm going to say it again, supplementing irrational male patterns. And that's an unconscious simp. It basically means he does not know what he's doing. So basically what he does, he's not acting in the role of a man, he's acting in the role of a male, because what he's doing is irrational. He's supplementing irrational male patterns. It's a pattern of behavior where he more or less gives his power away, Austin, to make that woman feel good instead of demanding something in a relationship. Relationships are based on what's called a homeostasis, and that's just a fancier way to say they should be balanced. It basically means that the man should benefit and the woman should benefit. But see, what men don't understand is that women only respect power and strength. That's all they respect. And so when you defer your power in a relationship, in the clinical world, we call it contraindicated, because it doesn't make any sense. You would think that giving that woman everything would make her love you and want you more, but in actuality, it repels her. So it basically means he's supplementing, meaning he's supplementing irrational male patterns. I use the word supplement because in the clinical world, there's a such thing called narcissistic supply. And so when you're supplementing a narcissist, what happens, you give them power in the relationship, and you diminish yourself instead of having equality in that relationship. A relationship is about the man benefiting and the woman benefit. Ideally, the man being the lead in that relationship. The second one, Austin, is called the conscious simp. And the conscious simp basically means this: sacrificing important masculine principles. I'm gonna say it again. He's sacrificing important masculine principles. A conscious simp knows what he's doing is wrong, because he's like, man, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but he'll do it anyway because the woman might be pretty, she might have a fat behind, the sex might be good, or he got kids, and so he sacrificed important masculine principles that are necessary for keeping his ego intact and strong. In the clinical world, we call it ego fidelity. And so what it does, it makes that man lose power and more or less not respect himself. And if you continue in that cycle, his identity will become diminished, because he's not more or less doing things based on how men should do things, which is principle. He's doing things based on what she says. And what I've learned, Austin, is this: women are at their best when men are leading them in love. The woman was made for the man. The man was made to lead her, not her lead him, which is something we see too many times here in America.
So what would you say in the United States social structure, or just our social culture that really doesn't exist? What would you say caused that this whole simp epidemic, where men feel the need to sacrifice, their masculine, traits?
Well, listen, boys get their identity from their fathers. A large part of it is the epidemic that we see in out of wedlock children. We know that there's a percentage of worthless men that are impregnating women. Sadly, in our culture, in the black culture, we tend to more or less embellish swag over substance. The typical average guy that's a hardworking man would be a win for many countries. But see, here in America, we celebrate the futures, the athletes. He got to be, super tall like myself, and he got to have that swag appeal. Swag matters more than substance as a woman or as a man. And so when that man doesn't have that, you got average women that think they should get above average men. And so it's a culture where boys are not consistently seeing masculinity in the home, which is the micro level, in the community, which is the meso level, but also in policy and government, which is the macro level. When you go back also to look at this last election, the last election was predicated on chucks and pearls. And so you were on the show with me that I did with Dre. I created a term or a hashtag called passports and pearls. And basically what it means is that men are using their passports to cast their pearls to women that are fit, kind, honorable, and they respect them as men. The gospel, consistent with the gospel, says not to cast your pearls to swine. And I'm not calling women swine per se. It basically means don't give your good service to people that are not worthy of it. And so, in a nutshell, it's the absence of having fathers. Boys don't have fathers anymore. They don't have other men in the community to identify with. And so, what happens also when you're in an environment where your teachers are women, when high officials are women, in the community or in your home there are women, then who are you to identify with? So you identify with the feminine, which is more or less satiating her needs, instead of more or less identifying with the masculine, which is based on principle, order, and respect. So
now that you've kind of touched on the fact that a lot of this behavior may come from single parent households, single mother households in particular, do you think that these women are directly involuntarily teaching their sons, simp behavior? And if so, how?
Yeah, it could be unconscious. Some of it is not conscious. They just doing things based on their hard drive. They doing what they think a man should do, which is to please them. If you notice women, Austin, when it comes down to masculinity, they'll say, when they get in an argument with a woman, son, just buy her some flowers, or just don't say anything. That's not consistent with masculinity, because see, the masculine is doing, the feminine is being. Masculinity confronts bad behavior. It doesn't let it slide. That's a strong masculine man. He will confront BS and bad behavior. But femininity is being, which is passive aggressive. Passive aggressive behavior is silent. It doesn't say anything, or it just ignores things, or it does not speak in conviction, which is being assertive. If you look at the gospel, when Jesus saw the woman at the well, he told her to go and sin no more. He was assertive. So masculinity is assertive. Femininity is more passe or passive. And so it's a byproduct of them teaching their boys to think based on how they feel instead of thinking, Austin, based on principle. That's a succinct difference.
So let's say I am a pandering man that wants to sacrifice my masculinity just to get a woman. What would you say to a man that has that behavior? What would you say? I don't honestly think that you can help him. I think usually you're too far gone, but there may be some hope. What would you say to a man that kind of fixes behavior?
Well, first you got to be aware of it. One of the things we've learned in therapy, Austin, is that you have to acknowledge bad behavior. Many are in denial, which is an ego defense mechanism. It's called denial. But you have to acknowledge that bad behavior. Once you acknowledge that behavior, I call it a SIMP recovery program, and I'm being funny. But once you acknowledge that bad behavior, you have to uncover the bad things that you have learned, and therefore you can recover. But is it possible that a simp can be reformed? It's possible, but it's going to take a lot of work, because when you've had years of negative social conditioning, it takes years to break that level of thinking. So you have to be more or less very aware of how that thinking is impacting you and your mental well-being, and more or less modify or change those negative thought processes. But until you are aware of it, which is denial, then you can never change the behavior. Because see, also I've identified that change consists of 5 elements. The first stage of change, Austin, is something called pre-contemplation. Pre-contemplation basically means I'm thinking about changing that behavior. Contemplation means not only am I thinking about it, I'm reading books, I'm reading paraphernalia, I'm coming up with the action plan. The next stage, Austin, is called action. That means you're taking an active role in changing those bad behaviors. And then the fourth stage is called maintenance. You're maintaining what you've learned in order to become a bad person. But the last stage is relapse. And relapse means you go right back into that simp cycle where you're going back into behaviors that are more or less not beneficial for you or your well-being or your community or other men. Because see, men, Austin, galvanize one another, meaning we sharpen one another by giving them advice or even critiquing them in a constructive way. That's what men do. Masculine men don't call out young boys, young men like yourself, because you're not going to be my son. That's female nature. That's the over-identification of the feminine. Masculine men don't do that. Masculine men don't bring smoke. We just talk as men. And if we have a disagreement, we just keep it moving. But you got a lot of grown men that call themselves masculine, but they do feminine behavior, to say the least.
So Marcus left a comment right here that kind of caught my attention. He said the most dangerous man is a former recovering sipaholic. What do you have to say about that? Why is that dangerous?
The most dangerous man is a former or current?
Is a former / recovering sipaholic. So I guess, used to be a simp, or they're like in their red pill awakening, I guess.
It depends on what he means by that. I would say a former simp is a simp that's walking in the path of in the right direction if he's a former simp. But if he's going through a red pill rage, in the clinical world, we use a term called existentialist. It's a faster way of saying existentialist crisis. And so when he goes through an existentialist crisis, he's asking himself the question, why am I living? What's my purpose? Why am I here? And see, an existentialist crisis many times can cause a man to have what's called rage. And so Kubler-Ross came up with a term as it relates to grief. It's called denial. He's in denial. Remember I told you a man must eradicate himself of denial first, Austin. So the man is in denial first. He has anger based on what he's learned or what he thought he knew about women. Then he tried to bargain the newfound information. Then he becomes depressed in his pursuits. And then the last stage is acceptance. He just accepts it. So if he's a simp or a simp that's finding out what happened based on the stages of grief, if he's in the anger phase, then he can be dangerous. But if he's a simp based on the simp recovery process based on acceptance, then he just accepts it for what it is and move forward with his life and try not to repeat the same bad behaviors again.
Have you ever been a simp?
I've never been a conscious simp per se, but I think we all have been guilty also of practicing simp behavior based on negative conditioning. But being a bona fide simp, no. Have I more or less exhibited maybe some simp behavior here or there? Yeah, I'm sure I have. I would say more or less probably conscious and unconscious simp to some degree, but a true bona fide simp, no, I'm very masculine.
Okay. I'm gonna ban somebody out of the chat right here.
Okay.
Yeah, keep following me around. So what would you call a dirty Mac a simp?
Yeah. Dirty Mackin is definitely simping because once again, that's the conscious simp. Because a real man don't do manipulative or feminine behavior to block another man from getting a woman. Yeah, a dirty Mac is definitely a simp in my opinion. He could be a conscious and unconscious simp. Many times I would say he's a conscious simp, but some of those men are definitely unconscious simps as well.
So what forms of self-improvement would you say a simp needs to learn to unlearn his simp behavior?
Well, the part of a self-improvement that a simp must learn, Austin, to unlearn his simp behavior is that he's giving his power away. Once that man understands that he's giving power away in that relationship, he would no longer continue to be a slave of his own ignorance. Many men also are slaves of their own ignorance. Harriet Tubman said it better than me. She said, I could have helped a lot more if they did not already know that they were slaves. So once he understands what he's doing is actually self-sabotaging behavior, the best thing that he can do is stop that sad behavior and move on a trajectory also that's going to be beneficial to himself, but also beneficial to those that are around him and also beneficial to those in his community. So he got to stop the self-sabotaging behavior and change the trajectory of that negative behavior.
Okay. Let me read the super chat first. This is what men need. Keep it up. I appreciate the super chat. So would you say a man that cannot control his lust is leading his way? That's leading his way into simp behavior.
Yeah, no doubt. I see that mostly in younger men. A man is not control, and even some older, experienced men. Listen, if a man values vagina over his principle and his dignity as a man, then he could be a conscious or unconscious simp. If he's aware of it, then he's a conscious simp. If he's not aware of it, he's an unconscious simp. So when you value a woman's sex organs over your inherent value as a man, then yes, that's a form of simping. Many men also know that the woman they're dealing with is not good for them, but they might say, well, she got some good sex, so I'm gonna stay with her. Or she cooks good, so I'm gonna stay with her. And so that's simping, because what you're doing, you're sacrificing important masculine principles, which is your dignity. Your dignity matters more than sex. Also in theology, the word Petra in the Greek means rock. And I'm not here to push theology, but in theology it says that heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word will abide forever. I'm from the old school. In the old school, we used to say word is bond. And so one thing I love about you, if you say you're gonna do something, you do it. You're not similar. We're both fixed. If you tell me you're gonna do something, you do it. If I tell you I'm gonna do something, I do it. So your word is firm, and that's what I respect about you. But you got a lot of wishy-washy dudes now, man. They'll tell you one thing and then they'll do something totally different. And so when men stand firm on their principles as men, what it does, it fortifies them and lets them know that nothing can move them or shake them. When a man is strong in his conviction and his values, and part of his value is his word as a man, then he can't be easily moved by sex, money, or anything. It doesn't mean that he won't be tempted, but he's not easily moved by it. That's the difference.
Okay, so I'm going to pretend to be a simp, and I want you to correct me. Now, if there's a woman that I really like, what I like to do is I'll just offer to pay for her bill so I can skip the line and catch her attention.
You said what again? I'll say it again, brother. I think I didn't hear you.
It sounds horrible, doesn't it? If there's a woman that I'm really attracted to, man, I don't like to do too much talking. I'll offer to maybe pay her phone bill, get her nails done so I can skip the line, because I feel like that's way more effective than her, me trying to mag on her with my personality and all that.
Yeah. I think if you're doing that for that woman, man, you're setting yourself up for disaster long term in that relationship. One of the things I learned in behavior modification is this: you don't give too much for basic behavior. Give an example. Say if you met a girl, Austin, and on the first date you took her to Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Something that's big time. Well, so you started the relationship off not setting standards for that relationship. A woman that you don't know does not deserve to go to Ruth Chris Steakhouse. No more than, you would deserve, to have your clothes washed or a gourmet meal, not on the first date. And so what'll happen many times, if you start that relationship off on that level many times, what'll happen is that you're conditioning that woman to think that her worth is more than your worth as a man. And so for you to use that scenario as it relates to that, now that woman's going to think that she should be getting that treatment all the time. And so what she's going to try to do, she might start manipulating you to more or less get those same set outcomes that you gave her. I came up with a condition at Austin called rats, right? And so if you're not careful, a woman will make you a rat. Rat basically means this. The acronym for rats is this: she wants your resources, she wants your attention, she wants your time, and she wants security and settlement for sex. sex that many times she gave to other men for free. And so you don't want to start a relationship off deferring your power as a man. You want us to demand power in that relationship, and demanding power is predicated on your values as a man and also your boundaries. If you don't have values and boundaries in the relationship, Austin, you're setting yourself up for disaster. And sadly, many times our men don't have values or boundaries, and because of that, they are becoming slaves of their own ignorance. And many times when they start their relationship on that level, the relationship is set for failure based on that.
O-Class right here says old school, new school combination. Great show. Y'all changing lives and giving the youth a GPS in this challenging life. Salute from a whatever flag you put there. I can't read on the computer. Appreciate that super chat.
Yeah, that looks like Dominican Republic.
Oh, Dominican Republic?
It looks like it.
Okay. So my girl cheated on me, man, and you know, we talked about it. And
you mean recent or in the past?
No. I'm pretending to be a simp. You'll never hear me like out of my mouth.
Okay, gotcha.
Ever. But you know, my critics are gonna chop up this, and they're gonna try to make it seem like I was saying, you know, but it is what it is. I need more publicity anyway.
Right.
You know, my girl cheated on me, man, and we talked about it, and you know, I really like her, so I think we should. I told her we'll just look past it and we'll work things out.
Well, listen, that's a sucker simp. He's a sucker simp, because if you allow a woman to get away with something that heinous or severe, you're set for doom for the remainder of that relationship. Women at a conscious and many times subconscious level know that to cheat on a man is egregious. If you allow a woman to get away with something that egregious, then she's going to undermine you and disrespect you for the rest of that relationship many times. Situations that heinous, you got to cut it off, man, immediately. Because what you're doing, you're going to reward bad behavior, and it's not going to benefit you as a man. Because part of you as a man is going to be sick knowing that some man entered your woman. And you're going to keep bringing it up in the relationship. It's going to cause a lot of confusion. Situation like that, if you're a masculine dominant man, you got to cut it off immediately, man. Because men are not wired for that. Men are wired different than women. We're not wired to have thoughts of other men touching our women. No more than a woman can have or understand or have the thought, and it's contraindicated, of her man being with another man. And some might say, well, that's something totally different. But it's not. Well, it's different as it relates to the gender dynamic, but it's not different based on the biological imperative. Men are not wired to have thoughts of other men entering the woman that they love. That's why men struggle sometimes with the woman's past. But women are not wired to have the thought of her man being in a submissive position to a man or him being entered. Once again, the gender dynamic is not the same, but the biological imperative is the same. It's called the penetration principle. Men can't accept that, and neither can women. That's why some men can look past a woman that had a bi-curious relationship. But most women can't accept a man, especially our sisters, being with another man. It goes against her nature.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you another example, and then we got a question down here.
Mm-hmm.
My girl, she said that she isn't happy, you know, in this relationship, and you know, she said we should just take a break and you know, possibly open up our options. You know, she's thinking about an open relationship.
I didn't hear you. I didn't hear the last few words, Austin.
Oh, and she's thinking about possibly opening her options and getting in a you know, an open relationship. She wants an open relationship.
Well, you give her an open relationship, she's gonna get more ping than you get vagina, which in essence is going to imprint her and make her not suitable for a woman. So if you allow something that's stupid and foolish, she's gonna win on both ends, because she's gonna get more sex and attention than you're gonna get as a man. And then if you decide to stay with her, now she's imprinted by different men. And you don't want a woman that's been imprinted sexually by multiple men. You know, many times they don't make good relationships. And that woman over time cannot be happy, which in essence means she wants to end the relationship because she's bored.
Well, you know, I just want to make my girl happy.
You can't make women happy, because women by nature are very fickle. It's not your responsibility to make anybody happy. It's not your responsibility to make a woman happy. A woman should come into a relationship with a level of happiness, but it's not your responsibility to make her happy as a man. Your job is to guide her and y'all work together as a team, but it's not your job to solely make her happy. Happiness must be from within first, and then y'all both can take y'all happiness and build a utopia on earth. But you always trying to make her happy, man, you're going to burn yourself out in the end.
Man, there's this chick that I've been really crushing on, man, and tomorrow's her birthday. And, you know, I know where she works at, and I think I'm going to go up there and I'm going to surprise her. I've tried to talk to her. She keeps rejecting me, but I'm going to go surprise her, you know, with $2,000 worth of gifts. And, you know, I don't have her number or anything like that, but I think if I do that, that'll actually work.
Once again, unconscious simping, supplementing irrational male patterns. Remember, the key word is supplement, which is the narcissistic tendencies of many modern women. Irrational. It's not rational that a man spend $2,000 to take care of a woman that have not done anything for him in return. Remember, the best relationships are relationships where the woman earns that relationship and she works to make you happy as you try to make her happy. That means it's a mutual benefit. But if you're constantly doing all the work, she's not going to respect you, because women were designed to look up to you. That's why women typically like taller men. They want to look up to you. But she's not. How can she look up to you when you're more or less placating to her? She should be looking up to you. That's why many times women, they like bad boys, because bad boys don't care, because she's constantly chasing his validation. And so a woman, she'll always seek to get your validation in a healthy way without self-sabotaging herself. But if you continue to give a woman that kind of treatment, then you're self-sabotaging yourself as a man. Remember, relationships are about an equilibrium where they both benefit, to say the least.
Well, I mean, there's somebody in the comments that has hope for me. They say that it may work to a certain level. But what happens if she does give me the time of day after I surprise her with a ridiculous amount of gifts for a woman I don't know?
Well, once again, who's leading who?
Is she going to use me?
No doubt she's going to use you, potentially. Who's leading who? In behavior modification, you can't give someone something that great because she have not earned it. You don't change bad behavior by more or less agreeing to bad behavior. You change bad behavior by stop doing bad behavior and correcting bad behavior. So that's bad behavior for you as a man, because from day one, you're teaching her that her value is more important than your value as a man. And that should never happen, because you're the leader. She's not your leader, you're the leader. You should be leading her instead of her leading you. That's the difference, if that makes sense to you.
Okay. So this subscriber here, someone in the chat says, Chunky Gecko says, gotta talk about son husbands. I'm trapped as a son husband father with no authority, respect, nor support. My father, when he's in my life, doesn't have my back. What can men like me do?
Okay, let me look at that also real quick. Got to talk about son husband. I'm trapped as a son husband father with no authority, respect, nor support. My father, he's in my life, doesn't have my back. Well, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. It's going to take a lot more work to change that bad behavior if you've allowed it over a period of time. You know, when I worked in law enforcement, Austin, they used to say the way you start out is the way you got to hold out. The way you start out is how you hold out. And that basically means that the way you start out in a relationship is how you hold out. But it sounds like to me that Chunky Gecko has allowed this behavior to go on for a period of time. And it's going to be an uphill battle to change or modify that bad behavior. So the way you change that bad behavior is trying to start setting law and order. But it's going to be a very difficult task, because you've already allowed this person to violate your standards. And so I would say get into therapy, specifically with a strong masculine therapist, which is hard to find, to help you modify or change those bad behaviors and try to set order and establish an order moving forward. But it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be very difficult, because you've already taught this woman, or more or less allowed this woman, to disrespect you and not regard you as a man. So you got to, you know, it's going to take a lot of work, man, to modify and change that bad behavior.
Okay. So he says, it's been my whole life. Speaking out got me beat bad.
He says it's been his whole life. Speaking of, yeah. Because the culture that we live in does not value what men say or think. Remember, men are the boogeyman, and so it could be in a relationship like that. I'm not telling him to leave, but if that behavior doesn't change over a period of time, then he might have to come up with an exit strategy. Not telling him to leave, but he got to more or less do a comparative analysis and see if it's worth staying. But if not, he's just going to continue to go in a cycle of brokenness, anger, and pain because he started something that he should have never started in the first place.
So, would you consider pay for play simping?
Mm-hmm.
You would.
Oh no! I'm sorry. I was just saying. Hold tight. So you're asking me is pay for play simping? I don't think. No, it's not simping. I don't think it's simping because you getting what you want and she's getting what she wants. It's fair exchange. So I don't see it as simping. Now it could be simping if you're over giving to a woman or you're not setting the standards for that transaction. And some would say it's morally wrong, but just say if it's morally right, or just say that's something a man is doing. If that man is controlling how he spends his money, if that woman solicits him, then it's not simping. But it can be simping if she's dictating to him how much money she wants, and she knows that in her country, traditionally, she would never get that kind of money. But she convinces him that somehow she should give him 2 or 3 times more than what the natives gives her, then that's simping. But just the act itself, no, I don't think that's simping. No.
So, do you think a passport bro could be a victim of a simp scam? For example, there was a guy in my Discord, and I'm not going to say his name because this might be embarrassing, but hey, it is what it is. He's in, it may still be the same situation now because it's like 2 months ago. He was in a divorce. He went on not Tinder, not Instagram. He found a bride order girl from Colombia, somewhere I would never tell anybody to look. He found a chick from there. They've been talking, they video chatted, so he knew she was legit. Now he's never been to Colombia, he's never met her, but whenever he gets down there to meet her, she's under the impression that they're about to get married. What would you call it? What would you label this man as?
I'm trying to. So she's under the idea that they're going to get married. Did he tell her that? I'm a little confused.
He told her that. He told her he's not even done his divorce yet, but he's about to go to Colombia to marry a woman that he's never met.
Oh yeah, that could be seen as simping, as sacrificing an important masculine principle. It could be conscious and unconscious. Yeah, that can definitely be simping because she hasn't done anything for him. She's leading with her beauty instead of him leading with power and authority. And so that man's going to put himself in a position where when they start the relationship, she's going to have the upper hand because she knows that he's mesmerized by her beauty. Even if a woman is extremely attractive, you never let her know that she is initially. And you give her enough, but you never give her too much. Because you tell a fine woman all the time that she's fine, she knows she's all fine. But what you're doing, you're conditioning her to think that she's better than what she really is. And so therefore, she's going to use that as leverage to tell you, well, if you don't give me the attention that I want, I'll get it from other men. So you never let her know. You let her know to some in part that you find her attractive, but you never just fawn after her and kiss her behind and all that, because now you're saying that her beauty is more important than your standards as a man, if that makes sense.
So as a grown man, let's say I'm 30, 31, and I'm a simp. I do a lot of dumb stuff to get women's attention, and it doesn't really work. Who around me is enabling my behavior?
Some good questions, also. You got some excellent questions.
So, off the top of the head.
Well, you're doing a good job, man. You're doing a damn because you hit me with rapid fire tonight, though. You're doing a good job. So the question is, if you're doing bad behavior as it relates to women, who's enabling you?
Yeah, and you're not an adult. We're past his mother may have conditioned him to be like that. He's a full-grown man. Who around him? Because I want to help some of these guys possibly if they can be helped. Who can these guys, find or look at that may be around them that's enabling their behavior?
Well, other men could be simping, which could be enabling that bad behavior. A birds of a feather flock together. If the blind leads the blind, they both fall in the ditch. So it could be other men that are simps and they don't know that they're simps. But sometimes their mothers could be more or less enabling them in their bad behavior because he's thinking based on how a woman should think instead of thinking based on masculine principle or masculine virtue. So, it's a case-by-case scenario, a case-by-case situation. But just on surface, it could be men around him that are broken men themselves, but also him thinking the way his mom would expect him to think in that relationship.
So I just thought of something. And I realized, man, there's a lot of suckers. Me being a barber.
I'm going to put my glasses back on, man. If the glasses, let me know, all right?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Me being a barber, man, I cut all different walks of life. I mean, I'm a high-end barber, so, I mean, they're not too different from each other, but I have some suckers that I cut. And one of them once told me that relationships or marriages aren't lasting like they did 50, 60 years ago because women have their own money, which they don't. They don't have their own money. 80% of women make less than 75 grand. That's not money. But the post said that because men nowadays have to be likable. Now, what kind of monkey do I make myself look like by trying to be likable to a woman? Women do not know what they want.
Right. I agree.
Am I a simp for trying to make myself likable to these women?
Oh, I think, I can see you being a simp trying to make yourself likable because what is she giving you in return? See, it's called the power differential, Austin. As I told you before in the past, she only respects power and strength. And you constantly trying to make yourself likable for a woman that has not more or less made herself or more or less met herself in a way that she can give you anything in return. It's not beneficial to you. Remember, her job is to look up to you, not you trying to seek her validation by chasing her. She should see enough inherent value in you that she will at least meet you halfway and say, I like you, and you guys can have a conversation. But you constantly chasing her is an issue. But I will say, Austin, overall, it might not be big money, but women having the opportunity to make some money has more or less made them more difficult to deal with. It might not be big money like you're thinking, like on a like you're a high-end barber, but them having a modicum of money where, because you understand, women years ago didn't work outside the home. Many women were in the house. Some did, but I think around the 50s they started working outside the home. So even if they only making $35,000 a year, it's a level of power that they have, and that level of power makes them think that they are as good as you or better than you, and so. A man doesn't have to chase a woman to make him likable because that means she's making herself the queen or the better in that relationship. Men should just be men and stand firm in their masculinity as men. And if she doesn't respect you, then you continue to focus on yourself, keep stacking your money and doing what men are doing, going to countries where women are feminine traditionally and getting the best outcomes from those sad traditional women. But you don't have to make yourself likable for nobody because that means you're denigrating yourself as a human being. Now, if you're being a jackass or, you're doing something stupid, then that's one thing. But if you're just being an average guy, you're not disrespecting nobody, and you got to always jump through hoops to make her like you, then that's a recipe for disaster.
So, I know in the 1950s movies or the movie life, I seen men had to win these women over. They had to prove themselves. They had to jump, make themselves look like a monkey, and they just had to. They had to prove to this woman that she was the prize.
Right.
Would you call a man that pursues a woman in that sort of fashion a simp?
Yes, sir. Because she's not the prize. She's only the prize, Austin, if he deems her to be the prize. But she's not the prize by default. I'm going to say it one more time. She's the prize if he deems her to be the prize. I created a term, Austin, called the prize catcher. It basically means that men determine if she is the prize. If she's the prize, Austin, then that man will catch him a woman, and she's caught by that said man. Men and women both have some redeeming prize qualities, but ideally the man is the prize or the grand prize, and she's the constellation prize, because see, she's looking up to him because she want a higher tier man. So how can something less than not be the prize when she's looking to catch something greater than herself? So you see my point? So she's not the prize. She's a prize in her head. But until that man catch her, give that woman his last name, put a ring on her finger, then she's not the prize. Because see, shout out to BGS one time, or Ron Wills, they said the water seeks its own level. And so if that woman is a 1, Austin, if that man is a 1, don't deem her to be wife worthy or ready, then she'll never get married, because women are the gatekeepers to sex. Men are the gatekeepers to relationships. So she's a prize in her head, but until she get that ring, she's not the prize. Now she might count it and say, well, I got several men that want to marry me. Well, they might be men that you like, but they're not men that you desire. Options don't always mean they're the men that you want. It's just the men that you settle for. Women get it confused also. They think because they have guys in their DM, these men are viable candidates for marriage. But most women are very picky and finicky. And many times average women think they're better than average men. So that man could be an average guy, but she thinks she's better than that average guy. So she keeps going for the top tier men. But as she goes for the top tier men, those men many times could use her or do use her. And she ended up being used by multiple men only to be left alone because she rejected men that were at her level, which are average. But because of hubris and hypergamy, she thought she was better than those men. And now she's by herself, and sadly sometimes with kids, by 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5 different men.
So I find this one woman on Facebook very, very attractive. Mm-hmm. She finally accepted my friend request. Mm-hmm. I got this real clever poem that I'm going to send her. And it's going to start with, I really appreciate you accepting my friend request. And it ends up being this long. It might take her a whole 45 seconds to read it. How does that sound to you?
It might take how many minutes to read it?
45 seconds.
Nuance a little bit more for me also. Say it one more time, bro. I'm sorry. I'm trying to process.
There's this chick that I really like on Facebook, man. So beautiful. I sent her a friend request a month ago. She finally accepted today. I'm so excited. And I'm going to send her this really clever poem that I have. And it starts off with, I really appreciate you accepting my friend request. And it might take her 45 seconds to a minute to read the rest of that. You know what I'm talking about. These dudes that send women poems. Mm-hmm. For the first, what do you have to say about that type of behavior? How does that come off to a woman?
That you're desperate, thirsty, and that her value matters more than yours?
Yeah. So, I mean, that simp behavior, right? What do I? Well, I don't know. I think those dudes should get that point. They should get that point that stop sending women poems. I put that tweet up the other day. Stop sending women poems that you don't send them a poem at all. Men are known to be more straight to the point, so you shouldn't. No, just don't do that. Now, how do you say? I seen a video of Tupac where he was kind of describing that he was kind of pandering to women from. He's like, yeah, I respect women this much, and you shouldn't talk to women that women can do no wrong. How do you get a man out of that mindset?
You can't get a man out of that mindset unless that man does the work to realize that he's losing power in that relationship. But you can't, Tupac, I think, even admitted that when he was being the good guy, he didn't get no respect from women. But when he started acting like a bad boy, that's when women start respecting him more. Because women only respect power and strength and the illusion of power and masculinity. Height is an illusion of power. A man that's 5'9", 5'11" could be way more dominant than a man that's 6'5" like myself. But it's the illusion of power. So women often want things that they can't have. And so if you appear to be docile like them in general, especially here in the West, then she's going to interpret that as being weak. And she will tolerate you after she had all her fun, but she'll never take you as a serious candidate for a relationship. I did a show on my channel called Imprinted. The man that imprinted her is the man that she still secretly lusts after. But the man she tolerated is not you, Austin, per se. but the typical man to settle for her after she had all her fun. So you don't do that. Masculine men, see, men could do that back in the past, Austin, because the women were women of virtue. They were raised right. They were traditional. They didn't have kids by multiple men. But you can't do that now. You can't do that now, man. It's an issue. You can't do that now because that woman's going to make you eat those words in the end. That's why so many men are frustrated in relationships, because they didn't lead in a position of power. They led in a position of lack.
Okay, so if anybody else has any other simp scenarios or simp questions they could ask, I think I pretty much covered. Hopefully some simps that are watching this, you heard some of your own scenarios, and you should be able to know that you need to cut it out, because you're getting nowhere fast. You're going to get cheated on, verbally abused.
I think the questions are great, by the way, man. You did an awesome job, man. You did an awesome job with the rapid fire, man. And, tell the people that are listening, man, they're in need of a non-diagnostic consultation. Check me out at kosherclinician@gmail.com. Nonetheless, subscribe to the channel because you and I have done some good shows together, some awesome shows. The Degree Show, Your Crown. We did some awesome shows together, man, and one of the things I love about you, Austin, is something men had years ago. You're very stoic. You don't get too high, you don't get too low. You're like, whatever. You're very indifferent. And I think your indifference really can be a gift for you. It can be a gift and a curse, but I think it is a gift as it relates to modern women in relationships. You don't sweat the hype. And even if you do sweat it, they'll never know it because you're so stoic. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. Thank you. I've had a lot of people call me, "Oh, you're emotionless." It's not that I'm emotionless. I just have control over my emotions, and they don't ever get out. I was talking to Zoom in Thailand earlier, Richie Mack, and he was talking about the Ugandan guy. You know who I'm talking about. And he was like, "How, even though he's talking about your mother, how can you just brush that off? Where'd you learn that?" And I don't honestly know where they learned. I've been dealing with that kind of stuff for a while, but I don't know how I actually learned that. But it's just because I'm a person that it is what it is, and hey, it's nothing I can do about it. It's out there, it is what it is. But Sean Miller right here asks, "Yeah, grown men do. I do make grown men cry on YouTube. They need a diaper." Austin asked him to explain in detail why white knighting is foolish.
Well, white knighting is foolish, man, because we don't live in the age of chivalry anymore. Chivalry was a time when women were virgins, they were wife ready, and they were childless. Chivalry was a time where the patriarchy more or less determined the value of a woman. I would say even in a strong patriarchy, men should never get on their knees and bow, because what the man is doing, he's conditioning a woman to think that she's better than him, even a good woman. Men should always lead based on power, but white knighting is foolishness, because he's saving something or someone that would never give him anything in return. Men by nature are masculine, so it's in our nature to do for women and children. It's in our nature. But, in the clinical world, we call it a thought-stopping technique. You have to use thought-stopping techniques to more or less stop you from thinking about jumping into scenarios and situations that would not benefit you. There was a band that Christians used to wear, Austin, that's synonymous to a thought-stopping technique. And it would say, "What would Jesus do?" WWYD, WWJD. And basically it says, what would Jesus do? So you gotta ask yourself, what would she do when you get tempted to jump into a scenario that's not gonna benefit yourself? And 9 times out of 10, she's not gonna do anything because, one, she doesn't know you. 2, you haven't made her earn that relationship. So white knighting is foolish because you give your power and your resources away for free to somebody that have not earned it. I know it goes against your nature as a man. Men's nature is to do, but you can't do for people that don't earn your respect as a man. That's why men also must have values, and then those values will set boundaries in that relationship.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So somebody left a comment towards me. They said my stoicism, or I think that's the right word, stoicism, was broken whenever I got my tattoo, and a lot of people had something to say. They said I was upset. You guys have never seen me upset. What you see when I get on there and I'm cussing a lot and I'm calling people out of their name, you've never seen me mad. You just see me. That means you just said something that was kind of dumb to me, and I felt the need to address it. You've never seen me mad. I haven't been mad in years, but I want to ask you this too. How does your line of work, being a clinician, how can you be a benefit to passport bros, green pill guys?
Well, I can be a benefit, man, because I'm teaching men about options. I'm teaching men about thinking errors. I'm teaching men about negative thoughts. I'm teaching men about taking those negative thoughts, turning those negative thoughts into positive thoughts. I'm teaching men about they don't have to let their current situation dictate where they're at now. I'm teaching men that the pain that they've been through, they don't have to continue to go through that pain. I'm teaching men power, fun, freedom, belonging, and survival consistent with Dr. Wim Glasser. That's what I'm teaching men. And I'm going to teach men that once they begin to travel, as travel is one of the 7 steps to male optimization, as I am the kosher clinician, that they will begin to see the world differently. Listen, many times also when we get outside of our own environment, we get a new reality. That's consistent with Dr. Wim Glasser's reality therapy, meaning the current reality is not based on what men think they should have, but it's based on what people tell them they should have. So it's helped them to get outside of their current reality and see a new reality that's consistent with growth, excellence, and also joy, to say the least.
Somebody left a super chat right here. Domo Worldwide says, or Damo, I believe it is Damo. My homie put his $120,000 income on his dating profile. Was that a simp move, and why? So I can.
Yes. Yeah, it was a simp move because he was leading with his money instead of leading with his masculinity. He was leading with his money instead of leading with his masculinity. He was sacrificing an important masculine principle, which basically means that I'm a man regardless of how much money that I make. I'm still a man. And also, he could have been seen as an unconscious simp because he's basically telling a creature that can be irrational to think that you'll get cooperation from me if you have money. So you don't lead with your money, man. You just be who you are. And eventually, if she falls in love with you based on who you are, the money will take care of itself.
So I consider myself a pretty masculine man based off my characteristics. In this society, we have terms like misogynist and the new one, toxic masculinity. Should I just tone my masculinity down to deal with these women here? Or what are my options? What do I do?
Well, if you tone your masculinity down, then what you're going to do, Austin, is that you're going to eradicate your authentic self. Now, of course, we all going to learn how to code switch in certain situations. I have a hard time doing that myself. But in a nutshell, you should always be who you are. You should be true to who you are. Be true. That's what Shakespeare said. So you should be true. And if you feel like you can't code switch, or the code switching that you're doing here in America is not enough, Austin, then you should more or less focus on relocating to a place where you can be a man, meaning cultures where masculinity still is accepted and also respected, if that makes sense.
I would agree, and that's why part of the reason why I feel like Brazil is my second or my supposed to be home. That's where I should have been at, because when I'm there, man, I don't feel there's no oh he's too manly, he's doing too much, controlling. I don't think I've ever heard a Brazilian woman say controlling, that I was controlling. But in the United States, if you stand up for yourself, if you don't allow her to get away with shit, you're controlling. If you want to pay 100% of the bills, you're controlling. I'm sick of it here. That's why I said I'm on the way out. I cannot do it.
Well, also it's actually thought based on how she feel instead of thoughts based on principles as a man. It's your job to lead her, not her lead you. And so what men do many times also to make that woman feel happy, they'll do things based on how she feel instead of being based on principles. Men should never have to change who they are if it's not bad behavior to make that woman feel comfortable. And you're right, that's why so many men are beginning to leave, because they feel like they can't be themselves. It's always about her feelings and her emotions. And if you deal with a person that does things based on feelings and emotions, you're going to run yourself up a tree. Relationships should never be based on that. Men and women both should have boundaries. But you being the leader in that relationship, you should more or less set boundaries and parameters around your life that's going to benefit you and your mental health and your well-being. Also, they did a study from 21 Studios, and I'm glad you said something about control, because I'm going to do a show talking about control soon, real soon. I'm going to do a show talking about control. And I'm going to say this, Austin, it might sound controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. All men should have control in their relationship if it's healthy control. But see, Austin, most human beings are lazy intellectuals. They don't think. And so when they hear the word control, when they hear the word submit, when they hear the word hate, they think all hate is exclusive, all control is exclusive, but it's not exclusive. Healthy control often says you're not going to spend all my money. Healthy control says you're not going to be texting exes that you had sex with or guys you like. Healthy control says you're not going to be going out with your girlfriends talking about going on girl trips and spending all my money. That's healthy control. Unhealthy control in my mind would say this, Austin, she can't contact her family. You're locking her up in a room. You're physically and verbally abusing her. You isolate her from her family and her friends. You take all her money and spend it on drugs. That's unhealthy control. But you gotta have control in a relationship, because even in the clinical world, Austin, we use something called control groups. A control group, Austin, is the group that got the intervention. The non-control group, Austin, is the group that never got the intervention. So you need control in order to run a relationship. Ask yourself the question, do organizations have control in their hierarchy? Yes. Do religions have control many times in their group? They should. So you should have a healthy level of control. Give me an example. If you got a kid coming to your house and that kid is tearing going to your refrigerator and jumping on your couch and nobody don't say nothing, then a woman that's not saying nothing is more or less not being a good parent. She's neglectful. But if that woman is saying something, she's controlling that bad behavior from that child. So you should have healthy control in the relationship, because if you don't have healthy control, Austin, what it's going to do is going to cause you to have what's called mental health distress. Mental health distress is one of the greater precursors to an early death. So you should have healthy control in the relationship. All people should have some level of healthy control. The man should have healthy control over his woman, and the man and the woman both should have healthy control over their kids. But what fool would be in a relationship where he doesn't have any healthy control? Because basically, if you don't have any healthy control, then that means you don't have a value system. If you don't have a value system, then you don't have boundaries, if that makes sense.
Correct. And I think that gets mistaken a lot in this country today. They think that like you said, control is always just bad. And a man needs to control a woman, as you just said. Let me read. I seen a comment here. Let's see. So, what do you think about? This is a good one. I think a lot of men should. What do you think about men over proving themselves during women's shit test? So,
yeah, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
I had a woman that tried to shit test me. We were going on a date and she pulled up and she rolled down her window, and I was trying to speak to her, tell her she could park, on this side. And she's like, I'm on the phone. I was like, who the fuck are you talking to? And what would you say about a man that would have reacted like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, my apologies? What is that? What is a label for a guy that does that?
Oh, he's a sucker simp. Now she said, oh, please excuse me, I'm on the phone right now, but if you give me a few minutes, I promise you I'll talk to you. That's one thing. But if she said with a condescending attitude and be disrespectful, and you still try to placate to her, then that's another thing. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
One is using soft skills, the other one is being aggressive and belligerent.
Okay. Well, I think that's all I the serious questions I have for the day.
Did I answer, man? You hit me rapid fire, man. I was catching them shots, man. You hit me in the mouth.
You did a very good job elaborating. So
right. I appreciate it, man.
A lot of people in the comments, they enjoyed hearing you talk.
And tell them also go subscribe to the channel, man. You know, they'll get a chance to see some of the shows that you and I've done together, man. And I look forward to doing some more shows with you. That Passports and Pearls was a good one. So tell them to check out the channel, man.
Absolutely. If you guys have not subscribed to his channel, go ahead and subscribe to his channel. He's the Kosher Clinician. He is heavily involved with the Passport Bros. We share the same critics. So I'm pretty sure Gail, if she hasn't already dropped his YouTube channel down here somewhere. Let's see. Oh yeah, his YouTube channel is here. So go ahead and give him a subscription. He has a lot of knowledge. He is a is therapist the right word to describe you?
Yes, sir. I'm a licensed therapist. To say I'm an LCSW, and so an LCSW also is a licensed clinical social worker, which basically means that normally LCSWs have more power generally than LPCs. LPC is a licensed professional counselor, but an LCSW can be they can start their own business. They can work at the government level. They can do a lot more with their degree. It's a very broad degree. So we have power to do a lot more than other professional counselors or even psychologists, because master level psychologists can't work for themselves. They got to be under what's called a doctorate of psychology. But an LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker, we can do anything, to say the least. We can start our own practice. We can start our own 503C. We can do whatever. We have more power. Our degree has a lot of power. We can do a lot of things with our degree, whereas other professions are more limited. Not saying it's not a good degree. Not saying their degrees are not good degrees, but they're more limited to a certain scope, where our scope is more broader, to say the least.
Okay, and if you guys enjoyed listening to him, if you want a consultation, his email is kosherclinician@gmail.com right here. Gail has already put it in the chat several times, but I put it on the screen so you guys can see again. The Kosher Clinician is his YouTube. Go to his YouTube right now. Give him a subscription. Somebody had a question right here. Austin, ask him to explain to younger men why sending money to hot tub streamers and OnlyFans girls won't get them dates.
Well, what you're doing, that's the unconscious simp once again. You're supplementing irrational male patterns. Men don't do things based on trying to please a woman. Men do things based on principle. So what's the principle to give your hard-earned money to a woman that you don't know? You're basically giving that woman or feeding that narcissistic supply, because most of those women are narcissists, to say the least. They're narcissists, and many times they're very entitled. So when you're giving that woman your money, your hard time, and your attention, you're teaching her, as I said earlier in the show, Austin, that her value is better than yours. Her value is not better than yours. I always tell men, Austin, they have a king inside of them. And queens only follow real kings. And so if you're giving a woman money that haven't done anything for you in return, then you're a fool, because you're not getting anything in return, which is more or less baseless validation. She might give you a wink and a smile, but in the back of her mind, she's saying you're a sucker. I would never give a woman my hard-earned money. You're gonna earn that money if you get it from me. I don't care how pretty you are, how wide your hips are. It means nothing to me, because as you get older, Austin, you look at things from the long haul. If I'm not going to if I'm not going to sleep with her, she's not getting my money. If she's not going to be my wife, she's not getting my money, or my girlfriend. So why am I going to give somebody, a stranger I don't know, my money or my validation? That non-sexual attention, Austin, many times women would use that to build up their egos. And they don't have an intention to give you anything, but you got these goofballs talking about queen, you're beautiful and all that goofy mess. And, she'll take the comments, but she'll go and get a back blown out by Raekwon the Man for free. But you gave her your money and you gave her free compliments. And you got nothing but a fake smile, to say the least. So men should never do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So he says, drop the Austin 316 here, get your passport. Yes. Like he said, do not send your money to women that have not earned it. But if you go to those women, understand the vast majority, damn near all of them, understand that they have to earn anything they get from you, and they usually don't ask you for anything. If they ask you for something, they're those green card, they're the scammer women that you can find here.
Right. Right.
A foreign woman's never going to ask you that.
Right.
But I think we pretty much touched on everything. Do you have anything you want to else you want to say to the audience?
No, I don't have anything. If the audience want to come up and ask me some question, also, if you got a few minutes, you can. If not, it was a great show. I thought it was an awesome show. I'll probably even use the show on my channel to educate some people. It was a good show, man. Awesome show, man. So if they got something they want to talk about, they can come and ask me a few questions. It's up to you. I got a few minutes, but if not, we're in the show.
I got about 10 more minutes. If you guys
okay, 10 minutes, yeah.
Final questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Let's see.
And guys, I want to tell you something about this young man. This young man is genuine. He's, if he say he's gonna do something, he'll do it. He's one of the most consistent people that I know, and I know partly because he's a Taurus. He's stubborn, just like me. But he's one of the most consistent men. I'm a Leo, but also is very consistent, man. One of the most consistent kids that I know, and I respect him highly as a young man. As I said earlier, he's young enough to be my child, my son. But I respect him highly because he's a man of his word. Something that many times young cats now, they're so distracted by so many different things. They'll tell you one thing, but they'll never follow up. But this young man always follows up. And he's always consistent. Even if you think he ain't gonna follow up, he's gonna follow up, and I appreciate that in him. I really do. I appreciate it a lot, to say the least.
Thank you very much. We got a question right here.
Mm-hmm.
How to overcome the nice guy syndrome?
Simple. You become indifferent until you change how you think, how you're thinking. But you set values for yourself, and then therefore you set boundaries. Your values will dictate your boundaries. And I'll give an example. I value respect, therefore my boundaries are don't disrespect me. I value reciprocity. Therefore, if you don't look out for me, I'm not going to look out for you. You just have to set value. You have to come up with you have to erect a value system predicated by healthy boundaries, meaning the relationship must be reciprocal, meaning you benefit, she benefits. It's literally that simple. And you become indifferent until you set up your value system and your boundaries as a man.
So, last question right here. Don Levon says, are guys that go to strip clubs simps?
If they spend it all, it depends. It depends on the context of the situation. If they go casually and they just getting some drinks and they're not spending a bunch of money, no. But if they go in there to get a woman's validation, if they're giving that woman all their money for attention, or they're trying to get that woman to like them, or they're trying to lead with their money, yes, they could be simps because those women know a lick when they see it. And so if you go into the strip club to get validation or to get attention from a woman and you give them your hard-earned cash and you're not getting anything in return, and if you do get anything in return, you overspend it, then not only are you a lick, but you're a simp. So yeah, it just depends on the context. If you're just going to have you a drink and sit in the cut and chill, no, that doesn't make you a simp. No, it just depends on the context.
Okay. Good answer. Let's see. So Nigel says, what is the difference between a simp and a beta male?
That's a good question. What's the difference between a simp and a beta male? Well, being a beta male does not necessarily make you a simp per se, but many times beta males have simp tendencies. I'm going to say it again. You could be a beta male and just be a hard-working average guy, but you're not a simp. An alpha is a dominant man that leads other men, but you also can be a beta male by default and not be a simp. Just because being a beta male is associated with simping, all beta males are not simps. They're simps only if they more or less exhibit behaviors that look like simping. Beta males are just not, they're just followers, but beta males can still have standards, if that makes sense.
Correct. Let's see if we have any. How long is too long? How long is too long living in monk mode?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the man and his situation. It depends on what his goals are. I personally think, yeah, it's hard, man, because I get it. Some men have to go into monk mode to focus on themselves and to focus on their future. But sadly, I don't think monk mode is good for a man's long-term mental and physical health. Unless God made you a eunuch, or where you're not getting any sex, like the God said, no fapping. I think monk mode could be good based on trying to get your goals met. But long term, I don't think it's healthy for a man. I don't think it's healthy for men not to be able to release themselves. Because if you're not releasing in a woman, then you're using your hand. And I just think long term, men need love. Men need to be held and embraced. I think men are healthier when they're with a good woman that honors them, respect them, and follow their program. I think a man can live longer. But I think monk mode is the best answer now in this current culture that we live in, because the women are so bad and the women are out of control.
Okay. So I think that is it for today. We've answered the questions so far in the chat. I really haven't seen too many questions similar to the last one you just asked.
Okay.
But I appreciate you coming on today. That was a really good live stream.
No doubt. It was excellent, man. I enjoyed it. You did an awesome job, man. The questions were rapid fire. You did it from the top of the dome. I'm very impressed, man. You made me think tonight, so I appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Please share this with somebody. If you know a sucker, share this with him. A lot of dudes that are in sucker mode, simp mode, need to see this. And remember, run to the post office and get your passport, because it's really that bad.
It's really that bad. It's really that bad, no doubt, man. I enjoyed you, young buck, man. Get you some rest, man. I appreciate it. And I'm gonna take this show off and replay it on my channel, man. I think people need to see it, man. So just give me a heads up. All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, brother. Be good.
You too. And remember, if you guys want to see more content from overseas, I have a GoFundMe link.
Are you a victim of brokenness and despair? A broken man is a hopeless man, and a hopeless man is a very dangerous man. Many times, many of you young men that are listening come from homes that are very toxic and very dysfunctional. And because of that, many of you have deferred your power in many ways, to the point it's led over into your social life, and many times led over into your relationships. If you guys are dealing with mental health pathologies, conscious and unconscious, come see me at kosherclinician@gmail.com. That's kosherclinician@gmail.com. It's important that you deal with your mental health in order to be a better person for yourself, your loved ones, and also your community. But because mental health is often stigmatized, many of you often suffer in silence. Don't be a victim in silence. And see me once again at kosherclinician@gmail.com. And I need you guys to remember this. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. There are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become an optimized male. And male mental health is one of those elements that's paramount to the functioning of a man. Be well.